Welcome to Book Screen Talk, and let's solve today's problem. There are n people in a line queuing to buy tickets, where the 0th person is at the front of the line and the n-1th person is at the back of the line. You are given a 0th indexed integer array of tickets of length n, where the number of tickets that ith person would like to buy is tickets of I. So basically, the first person wants to buy 2 tickets, the second person wants to buy 3 tickets, the third person wants to buy 2 tickets, right? And we are given the index of the person that we are to, in a way, follow. So if k is equal to 2, that means this is the index. So this is in a 0th indexed, array. So we want to look at k equals to 2. So that's 2, right? So if we look at 2, how many iterations would it take for this 2 to become 0? It would take 2 iterations, because it will, in the first iteration, it will become 1, and then in the second iteration, it will become 2, right? Sorry, it will become 0, correct? So it's pretty straightforward. The only edge case I found in these type of problems was that you have to keep in mind that since this is the last element here, it's fine because we have to, go through all of these elements to reach this element. But what if this element was in the middle, right? And this element has already become 0, and the rest of the array still needs processing, but this also needs processing, correct? So how would you stop? So suppose this is 2 and it is 1 in an iteration, and in that iteration it becomes 0, correct? So you know that you have achieved the problem's aim, that is to sell kth indexed tickets. So if you have achieved that problem's goal, why would you still continue and make sure the next index sells tickets, right? So that is the only edge case that I've found, which could have tripped people or could have, been a little tricky to understand. So let's quickly jump into the code. The code is pretty straightforward. We initialize our lengths as the length of the tickets array, and this is the output, so we initialize it to 0. Now, while tickets is greater than 0, so while tickets of k is greater than 0, that means the index that we are looking at, while that is greater than 0, we will initialize index to 0. So we want to start with the first index every time, right? So suppose this is the array that we have, and we're looking at this index, right? So every time this gets decremented, 3 gets decremented. Let me just clear this up a bit. Yep. Every time 3 decrements, it is added to the end of the array. So we don't have to modify this array in any way because k matters. So even if we modify, this could trip up a lot of people. So we don't want to modify the array. What that essentially means, what this being at the end of the array after every iteration means that its turn will come only after all the indexes in the array are traversed, right? That would explain it not, that would be equivalent to us not rearranging the array, right? So we, assign index 0 at every point when we execute this loop, after execution of this loop. So while index is less than length, tickets at index should be greater than 0, and tickets at this index should be greater than 0. So it doesn't matter if k is equal to index, right? The index of this, the ticket at this index needs to be greater than 0, and the kth index that we're looking at also needs to be greater than 0 for us to decrement that ticket, that means the ticket to be bought, and increment the seconds. Because the seconds will increase only if you are buying a ticket. If you are not buying a ticket, that's the case when the index is already 0. The ticket at the index is already 0. You don't spend any time buying the ticket, so you don't have to increment those seconds, right? And then once this is done, once this loop is done, you just increment the index. And once all of this loop is done, you will have a value in seconds and you'll have to return those seconds. So the only case that I had messed up was not including this in the first time I wrote the solution. And once I figured out what was happening, I wasn't returning seconds before. I wasn't returning seconds after I even calculated the seconds required to make this 0, and then I was still calculating in the array, which was wrong. Subscribe for more.